Hello, Internet. Me again. So, yesterday we had special guest Chris Galusha, who joined me on the Hypothetical of the Day. He was crashing on my couch. So, be warned, if you crash on my couch, I will put you on the Internet. That sounds really bad. But yesterday's Hypothetical, what do you think the world would be like if all copyrights belonged to their creators and were essentially made public domain upon their death? I think there's a lot of positives, not that many negatives unless you're a big corporation. So the big positive I see of this is that creators would then basically maintain their creative control over their own properties. So if you wanted to essentially produce something, no one's buying you out. If a company wants to produce like Hello Kitty merchandise, you can't just buy the character Hello Kitty. Or if you want to produce Mickey Mouse merchandise, you can't just buy the character Mickey Mouse. You would then have to continuously license that copyright from the creator. So, like, the first half of that, I think, is awesome in regards to people being able to produce something, and as long as that intellectual property remains relevant, they could collect royalties for it rather than having kind of this like one time sellout. There were guys like the guy who created the Coca-Cola logo who were able to hold some copyright control of that back in the day. But I feel like anymore, most companies have kind of seen that and like, no, if you make it, it's definitely work for hire and we definitely own it. And I think it would create a different sort of relationship between people wanting to market a product that was based on intellectual property and people who actually are the creators of intellectual property. And that might create more of a rapid turnover if there's no longer as much of an investment on the company, too. So it's kind of the catch 22, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to encourage people creating creative properties to continually create new creative properties. I feel like the going public domain on point of death comes kind of more into the territory of corporations can own things and maintain properties forever. Current copyright law was created under this idea that 75 years after an individual's death, something would become public domain. But corporations can own copyrights, and corporations never die. And that's the problem. If current copyright law didn't apply to corporations, then I think we'd have a lot more things going into public domain. And I think that was the spirit of the law when it was first created, that 75 years after the creator's death, something would become public domain. But now, with this idea that corporations are people, we have this problem of corporations being able to hold things that become integral parts of our society and our cultural dynamic that never go to public domain. So, do I necessarily think that it needs to happen at point of death? No, but I don't think that a company like Disney should be able to maintain a copyright forever. I believe something like Snow White or something like Pinocchio, you don't get to you get to maintain your own version of that. But at some point, when it's become such a big part of our cultural fabric, then I believe it should have the right to be co opted and used for other purposes. And I'm not trying to say that people don't deserve to make money off of their image or off of things that they create. I'm just saying that there needs to be a limit to it, and there needs to be a point where society lets that become just something that belongs to everybody. I also look at things like Star Wars, where the creator is still alive, but it's built this huge fan community and has become this massive thing. And that's far beyond the original vision or the original intention. Should that still belong to one person when all these people have added their creative flavor to make it into something big? And now it belongs to Disney. So now it'll never belong to this community that kind of fostered and helped it grow. And I think this way about a lot of geek community kind of stuff is you get into geek culture and so many people feel ownership or so many people add on to something. Is it right really to hang on to something forever? And On the other hand, it's money. It also that money drives the continuation of some of these subcultures. So I really don't know if there's a good right answer, and I'm not really offering a good right answer. I just feel like there should be limits, and I don't feel like corporations maintaining these properties forever has the limits that we need to have. On the other hand, Evan brought up a good point that if this were indeed the case, then you'd probably have people assassinating people for things to go public domain. I don't necessarily agree with that assessment because if you want to assassinate someone, usually you're doing it because you want to make some kind of profit off of their death. And the only time I would see anyone assassinating someone is if it were something like Star Wars and Episode 1 came out and you're like, oh no, George Lucas, you don't get to be in charge of this anymore. We are going to kill you because of Jar Jar. Then you might see like dedicated fans killing people over wanting things to become public domain. But I don't think you're going to see corporate assassinations over the right to take a logo because then you're not going to, make money off of it. So spiraling off of that topic, today's hypothetical of the day, if you could own any one copyright property in the world or any one intellectual property in the world, what intellectual property would you choose to own and how would you use that intellectual property? You'll have my answer tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.